I'm going to be joined by my good friend and mental health counselor and author, Adam Ciccio. And basically, the goal of our chat is going to be to um, to just help educate you guys what we can do to keep our mental health, safe as we go forward in this new normal. So it says it's connecting. What's up? Hey, buddy. How are
Hey,
you?
Jimmy, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Always good to see you.
I don't know about that. Really? Do you believe that? Come on. Hey, but you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. So, first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to jump on with us and
Of
do
course.
this. I think this is awesome, and I think it's really something that somebody needs right now.
For
So
sure.
basically, like I had introduced you before, you are a mental health counselor and children's author. But I want
Yep.
I want you to give kind of a 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are, a little bit of your credentials, and then we can get into the meat and potatoes of this thing.
Yeah, sure. So, as Jimmy said, I am a licensed mental health counselor in Massachusetts. I have a private practice in Marblehead. We have a staff of 5 total, including myself. We do mostly cognitive behavioral therapy for adolescents and younger children as well. Working on a lot of things like anxiety, social anxiety, depression, just emotion regulation, so some behavioral issues. And we also have a small branch that deals with more pharmacological stuff regarding mental health issues. And I'm also a children's author. That's been a recent venture that kind of bloomed up in the past few years. A big passion of mine was the vision of creating children's stories that deal with hard topics, emotional development issues that come up between the ages of 3 and 7. That parents don't really talk about sometimes, but the children's stories are used to prompt some discussions and give children education. So had the practice now for 5+ years. Before that, I was a social worker here in the North Shore, working in Salem in Beverly area. So yeah, that's pretty much the little 2-minute elevator pitch there for you, Jimmy.
There you go, and you even work in radio. So I mean,
I did, yeah.
imagine
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So yeah,
Imagine
that
that.
was that was like my secret agent job. While I was building up my practice, and anyone in that industry will tell you, they've always said, they need a mental health counselor on the floor at all times. If you're going to work in any sort of media, you
A-
you you need a
Absolutely.
counselor.
Absolutely. 110% agree with that. So
Yeah,
so getting into this, you said you are a children's author, and
yeah,
um so this is really difficult times for all of us. I mean, none of us
yeah,
have ever seen this before, but so many kids are struggling because now they're being, now they have to be taught online. How would you explain to parents to best explain to their kids why necessarily they can't go out and see their friends, why they're now having to do school online, and how would you address the fears that some of these children may have? Your 5 to 7 year olds, 8 year olds, that see all this sickness on the news, and they're like,
yeah.
I don't want my loved ones to die, and I don't want me to die. So how best would you?
So the first part of your question, just regarding why can't I go outside, and that's come up in some sessions virtually with some of my people, and really what I've described is not so much the sickness; it's more about what they said, flattening the curve, and just teaching children that if you have even a small percentage of people getting sick all at the same time, and there's not really a plan, like when you get the flu, they say, well, go get your vaccine, and we'll line up at CVS and get it before it hits. But we kind of got blindsided, so we
Yeah,
had to all kind of stay put for the sake of making sure that even if it's 2% of the population, if all those people go to the same hospital for treatment, there's not enough beds for them. There's not enough healthcare providers for them. So it's not so much about the fears, obviously there are some individuals who are immunocompromised, that are getting sick, and elderly that are getting sick, and we're just doing our part to make sure that there's enough supply to go around. So just not trying to reinforce the fear. I don't want people to be afraid and develop some mental health complexities down the road. And just to your second question about, the sickness part, I think I kind of covered that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a virus, respiratory virus that we didn't know too much about. And we just want our healthcare providers to give them time to learn about it. And so we are having to adjust our schedules. And it's hard because a human being, it's hard to adjust one behavioral behavioral movement or a pattern. It's hard enough. So to do all these things, like have to do school from home or not see your friends, it's a lot to deal with at once.
To piggyback off of that question, you kind of already answered it, but I'd like you to go a little bit more in depth, maybe. What is the best like work-life balance in your opinion for even adults and parents, because sometimes they got to have their school hat on, and then when do you take that off and say, okay, now you're at home, so now you can sit back and watch TV? What's the appropriate balance?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, so children are kind of behaviorally programmed to work and do schoolwork in a different building. And when they come home and over the summer, they are in the mentality of having fun, relaxing. When they're at home, they're typically relaxed unless they're doing homework, which every parent knows is already a challenge to get them to do their homework at home. And some kids don't even. They'll do it at school, or they'll do it before first period or whatever the case is. So now the fact is that kids are home all the time. They are completely scrambled in the sense that now they have to do school in their relaxation space. And parents are trying to juggle work and parent their child and, like you said, be a teacher to them. So day structure is so important. And really the expectations are having to adjust. There is going to be this growing pain, so to speak. I mean, I've seen it. Parents are real. I mean, the best thing I could say is just do your best. I mean, stay on course, set expectations before the week saying, hey, on Monday we're doing this, on Tuesday we're doing that, on Wednesday we're doing this. Give them the idea that they can already see it happening. So you're not just blindsiding your child with, hey, get off the video games, you need to do your schoolwork. That might not work. It might create a fight. So try to set the expectations moving into the week, and as best as you can, stick to them, even though obviously things are going to come up with, a parent's own job. I mean, stressors that are coming up for them because people are losing their jobs. I mean, in the mental health world, you got to address the basic fundamentals for health first, like, shelter, healthcare, providing food, money, things like that. Then you can go on to the smaller things like, oh, I have a little bit of anxiety, or, I'm having trouble getting motivated. I mean, if you don't resolve the basic needs first, then those other needs are they're not going to be addressed. So
it's just putting a Band-Aid
on. Dealing with those big needs right now, like healthcare and losing their job. So school sometimes is going to take a back seat, and that's really unfortunate. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of leads me into this next question. We've seen studies. I'm sure you've seen them even on the news. That throughout this whole 6-8 weeks, whatever it's been, alcohol sales have been on the rise. And actually here in Massachusetts, and I'm not sure about anywhere else, but liquor stores were deemed essential places of business. And so what would you say to those people that would sometimes, on average, sit down and maybe have a glass of wine with dinner once or twice a week, but now because of all the stresses and the unknown, that one glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine a week turn into a bottle, 2 bottles a week?
Yeah.
How do
Well, I think that as well, first and foremost, our schedules are changing. People don't have their typical outlets, like the gyms are closed, as you know that's a big outlet for you.
Yes.
um, and other healthier coping skills were eliminated at first, and people started crying out for, hey, listen, I need to get out, I need to walk, I need to get some sunlight, I need to exercise, because that has been what is my outlet for stress and has kept me away from substance use for so long. And so this whole situation has been a real tug of war between maintaining physical health and maintaining mental health. And it's been a delicate tightrope the whole way of, I need to stay inside, I need to, do the right thing and, keep up good hygiene, but my mental health is declining. And people tend to go to coping skills that are emotionally avoidant. So they'll use alcohol or drugs to suppress negative emotion. They won't sit with that emotion. Their tolerance for negative emotion can be low sometimes. So for those people, I would say, observe the emotion, recognize it. Don't try to push it away or hide it away with alcohol or drugs, because when that hangover hits, or when you're feeling horrible the next morning, the same problems are going to be there. Now you're just going to be hungover with the same problems. So,
yep, and the kids are going to be home too, so to
yeah.
amplify.
So I understand the stress, and we're all in that same spot. Maybe some less than others because they maintain their jobs, but adding another problem is not going to resolve the problem.
So what are some tips, like what are some things that maybe you have done or you've advised some of your clients to do during this time when the gyms are closed and they can't really go out for a run too much?
Yeah, you got it, but you got to find a way to exercise if you can, whether that be doing yoga, whether that be doing Pilates, or anything in your house. If you have those, YouTube video, everyone has access typically to the internet. Be creative. I think there's that aspect, and then there's the aspect of what calms you. I'm talking to people about creative days versus active days. On rainy, we live in Massachusetts, right? So
Yeah.
half of the days, if not more, are cruddy. It's raining, or it snowed that one day in May. And I would say make those creative days if you are into drawing or writing. I'm obviously like writing, so I've been writing more. I picked up playing the piano again. Just certain things to get that mind stimulated on crummy days. On very nice days, if you have a yard, be out in it. Do some gardening. Do some yard work. Get ahead of that. I go for a walk or a run. Wear a mask. That's safe. I think what I'm hearing is that it's okay to be outside as long as you're wearing a mask. And if you can't social distance, definitely take that precaution. But it's definitely necessary for the day structure and the balance of your mental health because you do need an outlet for stress, and there is stress. There's no doubt that we're not going to pretend like everything's great. So those would be my tips.
Exactly. And, I know at least here in Massachusetts, and I believe nationally, they've actually changed some of the HIPAA laws so that professionals like yourself can, do virtual consultations and visits.
Yep.
How does that work? I know you could probably only speak on the Massachusetts behalf, but if there's somebody out there that does need help, can you give them some resources as to where they might be able to go?
Yeah. So first and foremost, most like the restrictions have been eased, the red tape's been cut regarding telehealth. I think that anyone that was skeptical about telehealth prior to the COVID crisis is now completely on board. I work with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They've been fantastic about easing their restrictions. No issues whatsoever. Their continuity has been amazing for providers and for members. And pretty much any counselor that is technology savvy is doing this, and has a little more of a flexible schedule. I know I do. I haven't really had many people drop off. Most people do want to do virtual counseling and psychopharmacology. But at the same time, I recognize that there are people who don't have the resources, don't have the capability. What I would say is psychologytoday.com is a great website to navigate counselors that seem like a good fit, that are doing virtual counseling, that are in your area. But right now, you know, with everything going on, you don't really need to find someone in your area. You could find someone out in Western Mass that you think might be a good fit and takes your insurance, and they might be able to work with you. So the other part of this is, yeah, so you get the virtual counseling. I think that that's great. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. I really don't. You know, I think it's going to be more encouraged, actually.
Me too. I think this is going to be, you know, part of the quote unquote new normal that we see. You know,
Right.
and you know, and for those people that, you know, talking to that same crowd that may need some help, you know, we want people to stay educated and aware of what's going on the news. But when would you best suggest, you know, taking a step back, you know, because I know for me, I only watch the news maybe once or twice a day just to see what's going on, and
Yeah.
then boom, I get away from it. Because if I sit there and I watch it and then I scroll on Facebook, I get overwhelmed myself. So what's the recommendation there, would you say?
Yeah, definitely don't watch the news right before bed, because, you know, we have those two nervous systems, our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, that fight or flight response. So if you're watching the news, and obviously the news is all bad right now, you know, they're playing on the emotion of fear. So if you watch the news right before bed, you are going to have a heightened fear response or anger response or agitation response, and that sympathetic nervous system is not going to be in its rest and digest state. It's going to be heightened, and your blood pressure is going to be up, and you're not going to want to fall asleep. Not good for dreams as well. You might have stress dreams or nightmares. So my advice for news consumption would be, you know, watch the governor's press briefing. It's on at 11 typically, or noon. And if the president has one at 5, maybe you could watch that as well. New information. That's where you get new information. That's what I've been doing. Just kind of staying informed, not doing the, I guess, the pundits and the political debates and the back and forths and the Fox News and CNNs and all that. That gets very exhausting and angering. It can consume most of your day. And I would say try to stay away from that stuff, because right now the emotions are high. I try to stay away from political opinion and just try to absorb as much data as possible in, you know, short amounts of time, and then just get back to what I can do in my day to make my day better.
And just kind of pick through it like with a grain of salt and be like, okay, you know.
I mean, we've all seen the, you know, YouTube videos and the conspiracy theories and the emotion on Facebook. Again, social media also. You know, I'm finding myself more on the side of like Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and away from Facebook, because Facebook has been super politically driven,
Yep.
super emotional, and just very negative. So be careful about what types of social media you are engaging in and for how long. And I know it's easy to, because you have the phone, you have nothing else to do. So
Exactly. And you know, you talked about it in your previous answer about fear, and that brings up a thought of mine I just had. You know, so many companies I know, Google has announced that they're not having employees come back to the physical building until 2021. Twitter has now said that employees have the opportunity to work from home, as you know, as long as they want, you know. So I talk to people just in my, you know, day-to-day conversations, and they're like, even after things get back to quote unquote normal, I don't know if I want to go back. I don't feel safe. How do you address that? What are your thoughts?
well, I guess my humble opinion is that this might create, well, I always tell my kids all the time, it only takes one bad experience to change behavior, human behavior, to go into that tortoise shell and hide forever. And this has been definitely a huge trauma for all of us. However you want to cut it, whether it be economic, whether you want it be mental or physical, we're all might proceed with caution. And I'm afraid of the over correction that's going to happen, where they develop a treatment, and they develop, whether it be a vaccine or whether it be a, more of a preventative treatment. And yet 2-3 years from now, people are still too cautious, not traveling maybe, or not doing things that they normally would, and creating that kind of trauma response. Maybe even I'm a little worried about the rise in obsessive compulsive disorder regarding cleaning,
Yep.
using too much hand sanitizers, using too many Clorox wipes, things like that. Shelves. I'm worried about shelves being bare for a while with toilet paper,
Yeah.
just because people were so behavioral. You watch one person stock up their cart full of toilet paper, and the next person says, should I be doing that?
Exactly.
And that's how behavioral issues start. You watch someone else's behavior and you get afraid that you might need that. Hoarding issues might go up. So these are things that I'm definitely concerned about, and I would, challenge everyone out there to ask that question of, do I need to be taking this much action, or can I slow it down a bit and challenge this fear?
Yeah, because even just in my day-to-day conversation with one of my family members, they were sitting there saying, okay, even after things get back to normal, like, I don't know if I want to go out to eat anymore. And like,
Yeah.
to me, that broke my heart. Like, I was like, man, what kind of like life is that? And it kind of reminded me after 9/11, people were saying, well, I don't want to fly. And there was a good amount of people that didn't fly for a year and a half afterwards.
Right. That's the whole point of one bad experience can really ruin behavior for a really long time, sometimes an unnecessary amount of time. Because, God willing, we'll have a treatment in 12 to 18 months. And after that is done, are people still going to avoid restaurants or avoid going to concerts or baseball games? And we won't really know until then, but I'm hoping that individuals will challenge that, will remember. And obviously there's a difference between precaution and paranoia, right?
Yeah.
That's something that I encourage everyone to work through with their counselor, to understand, where does our precaution and our paranoia begin. Being aware is great. Not getting blind. Once you're blindsided once, you never want to have it happen again. So
Yeah.
I understand that, but I think that there's only so much you can prepare for, and I think if you're just taking the normal precautions, washing your hands after eating. I mean, simple thing, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, not after, before.
And we should have
eating,
done that before.
making sure that you're just being normally hygienic. I think is not having to shake hands. I get that,
Yeah.
if you don't want to
Yeah.
shake hands, but so there's certain things, sneezing into your elbow, things that we weren't doing before that we probably should get a tune up on, So those are things that I hope continue. But I guess anything outside of that, like fearing social contact, fearing going out to eat after this is, the treatment has been provided, I think, should be corrected. So anyway.
Yeah, and I honestly think you'll see, as we've seen the past couple of weeks, lines getting into the grocery store. They're only going to allow a certain amount of people. I think this is all part of the new norm. But even if that is, I encourage people to get out. Now for me, I mean, I wear my mask, I do all that stuff, I bring my hand sanitizer, and I'll be honest with you. You know me. I take the ride, which for those that don't live here in Massachusetts, it's a disabled ride service. They pick up people from all over, nursing
Nursing
homes,
homes. Yeah.
and to me, that was that was really scary. And I was talking to one of the ride drivers the other day, and she was telling me, she says, just so you know, to ease your mind a little bit, the 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 vans are being bombed by, cleaning agents after every shift. The drivers are now required to wear masks.
Yep.
They have to have their temperature checked beforehand,
Yep.
and they have to wear masks. And to me, that made me feel so much that made me feel so much better because.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, you make a good point that every company is now, I mean, the state is going to require new guidelines for businesses, for transportation services, for the T. I mean, you and I both know that T wasn't getting wiped down every night, and so I think this is a good thing for companies and making sure they have a hygiene protocol, so people are comfortable. So this doesn't happen again. But again, where does the precaution end and the anxiety begin? And so if you're finding that you're really questioning your decisions, having a lot of ambivalence about doing things, not sleeping, being kind of, if you're hoarding, if you're doing things like that, I think it's time to maybe chat with somebody, and I'm not saying, I mean, I get it. You want to protect your family. We're inherently survivors. So we want to protect our loved ones. We want to hunker down, that fight or flight and freeze response. Yep. No one ever talks about the freeze response, which is just hold tight, don't do anything. And so I think that's within us to sometimes just curl up, get in that turtle shell, and when you hear about invisible enemy all the time, you're like, if I step outside, am I going to breathe this thing in? Am I going to touch?
Oh, yeah.
And people who have gotten sick have probably thought, when did I get it? What did I touch? What did I do? Start blaming people, start getting angry. And I mean, I'm also the people that have had it. How much trauma do they have going through, watching the news and coughing up a lung? I've had patients that have had it, and I've been on Zoom calls with them, and they don't seem, they don't seem like, not only dealing with the physical aspect, but the mental health part of it too. So,
and I think for myself, even because, like I said, I go out, I wear my mask, and I'll go grab a coffee and I'll roll down the bike path or whatever. But I'm a social person. I'll say hi to anybody,
right.
And even just in my day-to-day life, I've noticed as I'm going down the sidewalk or whatever, I'll say, hi, how you doing? And people won't even look at you. And
well, you live in Massachusetts, right, Jim?
Yeah, but this is more than being a typical mass person.
I've seen people run to the other side of the street, which, like I said, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I went golfing a couple days ago. I went on a walk yesterday, and there's definitely a sense of tension in the air.
Yeah,
and that tension does not induce friendliness or cordialness. So I think that there is this aspect that we are missing already, this isolation. But even when you get out there, are people going to interact differently? And I'd say, yeah, because they're going to be like, are you going to give me coronavirus? Are you going to get me sick?
Exactly. And I think especially too, because they're saying that there could be another outbreak in the wintertime.
Yep.
So I think even once we move into later spring to early summer and through the summer, I don't think you'll see people necessarily relax, because they'll have that also in the back of their mind, saying, okay, well, it's gone now, but they're saying it's going to come back in the wintertime.
Yeah, and just I'll say to that is precautions about the possibility of that now, because we were kind of blindsided during that spring wave and having contact tracing and they're ramping up testing and putting in all these sanitary precautions and social distancing, that we could expect it, but that will also be prepared for it as well. So
Yep.
that's the confidence that I have. And, obviously it might be very cautiously optimistic until we really have a breakthrough way of tamping down this virus, which I hope will be, towards the end of the year or maybe beginning of next year. So, but my hope is that we'll have all the things in place to feel a little confident and not having to isolate and deal with that mental health stuff for 2 straight months, both economically and, you think about all the people with depression. The one thing I say is that, people with depression already want to isolate. And now that they're forced to isolate, we're really putting those people at tremendous risk. And suicides have been way up. But I get it. We have to save our elderly population. We have to save, the pandemic from spreading. But it's at the cost of definitely some individuals struggling with it.
Just curious, because I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I had mentioned that suicide has gone up since this is all started. Would you happen to have, just off the top of your head, I know I'm throwing a curveball at you.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Like a number or a percentage that it's jumped?
Well, I know it's jumped at least 250%. At least. So that's, so you're talking about typically suicidality is, last I checked, typically around 30,000 deaths a year, maybe a little more. So we might be looking, you hear the anecdotal stories, the doctor in New York City and the ER doctor who committed suicide. Just people who in the healthcare field who are just so exhausted and beat down. And then you have the depressed folks who are isolated and feeling like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You really have to do your part as a friend and as a mental health provider and as a family member to check in on everybody. So I would assume that the suicide rate numbers wise might jump to in the 40,000s, but I'm not, so don't quote me on that.
But
I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping that with the telehealth and with people being more hyper aware of these issues, that we might see maybe even a reduction, hopefully. But it's the other thing that I'm hoping too is with all the sanitation stuff going on, maybe flu will go down too. I'd
be all for it. I'd be all for it. And hey, I'm looking at it from a selfish standpoint. I want to go to a baseball game. I want to go to a basketball game. So can everybody just do their part, wash their hands, so I can go watch sports, please?
Right.
Please.